For me, giving back to Xavier is really giving back to that student who comes on campus and doesn't know who she is or who she wants to be. And I feel like I was very grounded in my values, like I knew who I was in that perspective, but I didn't know who this Teal was going to be.
From the Office of Institutional Advancement and Alumni Relations, this is Xavier Gold Live, the podcast highlighting stories of leadership, impact, and the Xavier spirit.
Welcome to Xavier Go Live, your front row seat to the stories of Xavier alumni transforming passion into purpose. I'm Jamya Stewart, a psychology major exploring the world of mass communication as my minor, hailing from the great city of Chicago, Illinois.
And I'm Amaya Sanford, a proud mass communication major from the Atlanta, Georgia. Together, we're committed to uncovering the stories, legacies, and lived experiences that continue to shape Xavier University. On this episode, we welcome Teal Holden, a transformational healthcare leader, equity champion, and proud Xavierite whose career exemplifies the power of purpose-driven leadership. From advancing patient care to uplifting communities through mentorship and philanthropy, Teal embodies Xavier University's value of excellence, service, and social impact. Through her work, she continues to inspire the next generation to lead with heart, vision, and encourage.
Teal Holden, a trailblazing healthcare executive, change agent, and committed to equity, leadership, and community impact. Teal currently serves as Senior Vice President of Ambulatory Services, Post-Acute Care, and Community Health for Memorial Hermann Health System in Houston, overseeing 100-plus outpatient locations across the region. After a success-filled time at Xavier, she went on to earn her MBA and Master's in Healthcare Administration. Her career has been marked by strategic growth, patient-centered innovation, and a passion for transforming systems from the inside out. She has been named to Becker's list of Black healthcare leaders to know, honored as a 2025 Breakthrough Woman by the Greater Houston Women's Chamber, and is a champion for diversity as chair of her organization's DEI Leadership Council. A mentor, advocate, and scholarship donor, Teal Holden embodies the power of purpose-driven leadership rooted in Xavier's values of faith, service, and excellence. Ms. Holden, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you all so much for having me.
So let's jump right in. You currently serve as the Senior VP at Memorial Hermann, overseeing a major portfolio. Can you walk us through your leadership journey and how you've navigated such a dynamic healthcare landscape?
Sure. So I started at Memorial Hermann immediately after graduate school. So after I got my MBA and my MHA, I knew that I didn't really have a significant amount of experience. And so even though I had 2 masters, I decided to start at an entry-level role. So I was a patient business services coordinator in one of our new divisions, which was outpatient imaging at that time. And so that was really taking all of radiology services and putting it into a retail setting. That division had rapid growth within my 1.5 years with them. Actually, no, I was with them longer than that. But I was in that role for about 5 months. They were looking for leaders to take on management and leadership roles within their different facilities. And so as they grew, we were able to grow alongside of the division. So started out as a coordinator, moved into a manager role, moved into a director role over those years that I was with them. So I actually was with outpatient imaging for about 5 years. During that time, I started to really get bored. I think healthcare, one thing that you realize is that it's so multifaceted, no matter what part of healthcare you go into, if that's the medical side, if it's the administration side, there's strategy, there's patient experience, there's, operations, there's healthcare, human resources. There are just so many different things that you can do. And so I didn't really want to get stuck in just one area. I didn't want to only be known for that. And so as the country was really looking at accountable care organizations and creating medical groups, I decided to transition to another part of our organization that was also rapidly growing. So I was able to bring some of the skill sets that I had in regards to building a part of an operation and take that to another part of our organization. When I started with imaging, I believe we may have had like 4 facilities. By the time I left, we had a little over 40. Wow. And so when I transitioned to our medical group as a regional director of operations. And we started probably with about 12 practices. I had all of our primary care physicians across the South Corridor of Houston, as well as our surgical specialists across the organization. Memorial Hermann is a 17 hospital organization. We have over 300 physician clinics, over 100 outpatient units, also probably about 20 to 25 surgical centers and surgical hospitals. So it's a very, very large system. So when I started with our medical group, we had those 12 practices. By the time that I left the medical group, we had a little less than 100, growing our employed physician base from about 60 providers to a little over 300 providers. And so, like I said, being able to be part of the organization that was rapidly growing, I was able to take that skill set to our medical group, as well as really do things that people don't want to do, create policy and procedure, create processes to make it easy to acquire physicians. So it was, just one of those things that really helped me grow. I was also able to work with every single C-suite at our health system. So I worked with every CEO for every single one of our hospitals. Wow. And it really gave me that experience to work with executives while kind of in a middle management role. I didn't have the best leadership during that time, however. Our leaders were a little all over the place, didn't really have a defined strategy. Thankfully, the person that I reported to, the person that he reported to was phenomenal. He was actually my first mentor at Memorial Hermann and really helped me kind of shape what I wanted to do next. I knew that I would not really succeed as far as I wanted to go, still working under that leadership team, and decided that I wanted to start looking for something else. And so he asked me at that time, had I ever thought about hospital leadership? And I thought, I've worked on the outpatient side all of this time. No one's going to hire me on the inpatient side. And he was just like, I think you should look into it. Kind of parallel to that, as I stated, I worked with all of the C-suites of the hospitals. There was a female CEO of one of our hospitals. She's now the COO of our entire system. But at that time, her COO was about to interview for another job. And she asked me if I would interview for his backfill. And I was like, you want me to be a COO of a hospital? And she was like, yeah, you can do it. And I was like, I've never done this before. And she was like, but Teal, you have great physician relationships. You know how to, build a process from end to end. You know the landscape, so you can do this. He didn't get the job. And so, I was like, okay, well, let me start looking for something different. But what was interesting in that was that between my mentor and this CEO, they kind of gave me the confidence of knowing that I was ready for that next step. So I started looking for different types of roles at the next level. I ended up getting a CEO role of a small joint venture hospital that we have. And really from there, that's what catapulted my executive career. So I did that for about 2.5 years. Came back to the same health system and was a system VP at that time, really building out strategy for what we call our convenient care centers. And then we had a major RIF, so basically an elimination of executives. My boss, as well as my colleagues, were all eliminated, and they decided to create a new role and ask for me to take over one of the largest divisions of our organization. Wow. Which is what we call ambulatory services. Ambulatory services represents about 52% of our entire system's bottom line. And so that's one of the areas that I'm over, which coincidentally includes the first division that I ever worked for at Memorial Hermann.
So it's full circle.
So totally full circle. And then I was vice president of ambulatory services at that time. Then they asked me to take on our primary care service line. And when they asked for me to take on that, they promoted me to a senior vice president. Because of my work with the medical group, I knew a lot of those primary care physicians, so it made sense. And then we did a reorganization, and we moved our service lines under some of my colleagues. I gained post-acute. And then in 2023, our organization decided that they really wanted to create a health equity strategy, not only just focused on the health care of an individual, but also addressing non-medical drivers of health, and really looking at how we can invest in our community. And so they asked for me to lead up that strategy and create a division based off of that. And so that's where I am today.
Wow.
Just from hearing you talk, you've done a lot.
A lot of work.
You've done a lot. You've moved up a lot. Like, you got it going. Like,
Thank you.
You're welcome. And you've held both operational and strategic roles. So what advice do you have for young professionals looking to move from execution to executive leadership?
Yeah, so I would say, be a sponge. Like, I think one of the biggest things that I've done in my career is really learn from those who have done it well and really just take feedback. I mean, we're never going to be perfect. And so listening to those that you serve, so your patients, your employees, your physicians, and really taking all of that feedback to determine what is the next best thing for your organization. I think the other thing about when you go into executive leadership, people want to like who they're working with.
Absolutely.
They want to like their executives. They want to like who they're working for. I still talk to some of my employees from when I was a manager. Just because I'm at a higher level role doesn't mean that I can't still keep relationships with those at very different levels. I mean, we're a work family, and really being able to have that relationships helps me keep the pulse of what's going on in the day-to-day, because I don't interact with patients every single day. I don't interact with staff every single day. So being able to, quickly pick up the phone and be like, hey, what's really going on here? And knowing that they will tell me the truth, because a lot of times people don't want to tell executives the truth. So it's nice to have those types of relationships. I think the other thing is that mentorship and sponsorship is key. I probably gained a mentor much later in my career than some others. I'm very much of an introvert, so asking someone to mentor me was a lot. But I think what I've noticed over time is that you want someone who's in the room who will be able to say, she can do that job. When we had that major riff of executives, I had 0 direct reports. I didn't have a small budget, but I had the smallest budget of everyone who they eliminated. But someone said, Teal can do this job, and let's eliminate everyone else. I would have been the easier person to eliminate. And so having sponsorship is really key when you start going into executive type level roles. Those people will always help you in regards to, when you are making those major decisions, because they've been there before. They've done that before. They'll help you kind of navigate the political landscape that you may have within your organization as well. So I think all of those things kind of work together to get you from really being someone who's doing the day-to-day to then someone who's setting strategy. And then the last thing that I'll say is that, when you are setting strategy, you have to think about what's going on in the world, what's going on in other fields. We learn a lot from non-healthcare organizations. We learn from disruptors, those that are trying to come in and do the work that we're doing. And so you have to also just stay abreast of what's going on in your environment, not only from a local perspective, but from a statewide and national perspective, because all of those things help develop your strategy that you're going to have overall in regards to leading your organization.
So, first I want to commend you, because you are just reading all of this and then hearing you talk about it and break it down is so amazing. And knowing that you were in the same spaces that we're in just at Xavier is just wow, you see what can actually come from Xavier. And you've supported Xavier in a myriad of ways. I mean, we could go on and on about that. I know that you've established an endowment here that has been very successful. So why was giving back to Xavier so important for you, and what impact do you hope those endeavors will have?
Yeah. It's interesting because I think when I talk to students, they're always like, you must have been so involved on campus and you must have done all of these things. I did nothing on campus. I mean, I came to school. I lived in New Orleans, and I really did live in New Orleans. And, I had a great time here. I think it took me a while to really understand the impact that Xavier had on me.
Yeah.
And I think, a lot of people get that at different parts of their life.
Yeah.
I think when I think about my time here on Xavier helped me find my own voice. I'm the youngest of three. I come from a family that is pretty well known in Houston. And so, growing up, I always, Byron and Williams' little sister, Coach Holden's daughter, Dr. Lott's granddaughter, just all of this stuff. But I was never really Teal. And so I think Xavier helped me really figure out who I wanted to be and what I wanted to do. I came here as a chemistry pre-med major, being really good in science and math, but not really having a passion for medicine. But, everyone said, you'd be great as a doctor. So, of course, come to Xavier, become a doctor. But I think when I was here, I realized, especially being around so many students that were so passionate about being a doctor, that that's just not what I wanted to be doing. Absolutely. And not what I wanted to be doing long term. And so for me, giving back to Xavier is really giving back to that student who comes on campus and doesn't know who she is or who she wants to be. And I feel like I was very grounded in my values. Like I knew who I was in that perspective, but I didn't know who this Teal was going to be. And so I think Xavier, not only with the community that I was able to build of different peers, but also different faculty and staff who really talked to me about like figuring out what I really wanted to do, because I couldn't live somebody else's dream. When I was here, I still finished as a chemistry pre-med major, but some of my advisors on staff talked to me about, learning more about business, taking business classes, which is really what propelled me to decide to go and get my MBA and get my MHA. And so I just feel like, for the most part, that's what Xavier did for me. So for my endowment, I want students to be able to come here and be comfortable with pivoting. I did not change my major because I didn't want to lose my scholarship. I didn't want to, have to start over or anything like that. And so, my endowment is really for those who are coming, to Xavier not knowing what they want to do, who may change their course mid-cycle, who may, want to just explore different types of things so that they can truly find their voice and determine who they want to be.
Absolutely.
I feel like everything you just said just
spoke
volumes. Like I have so many friends that'll come here, they think they have to be a doctor, but the passion, like you don't have to. It's right. Not there. You can do other things. Yeah. And I feel like Xavier builds you up, teaches you who you are, different parts of you that you didn't.
It unlocks your potential for sure. That's spoke to me because I'm a psych major and I was an education minor. But then I saw mass comm majors like Amaya, Tashaya, the mass comm department. It was just so. And then I met Mr. Johnson.
Yep.
And I was like, I actually like doing stuff like this. I like stuff like this. So when I changed my minor, joined the podcast, it was like, this is actually for me.
Yeah. Exactly.
And only Xavier, I feel like only Xavier would have taught me that, would have showed me that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, Xavier exposes you to different things. I knew, you go to a hospital, you don't ever think about the person who runs the hospital.
Yeah.
You think about the physicians, you think about all of that. But it really wasn't until Xavier that I thought about, I can run a hospital. I can hire all of my peers. I have hired Xavier physicians, And so things like that, I didn't even, it is. But things like that, you don't really think about when you're 17, 18 years old. And, I tell students all the time, you're making a major decision at such a young age, and it's okay to realize that that decision just may not have been the right one the first time that you made it. People change careers all the time throughout their lifetime. And so it's okay to do that when you're in college. So I think, Xavier exposes you to so many new things that you could be doing. I mean, I think about all of the majors that Xavier has now, and they were just talking about Xavier Exponential. I was like, I mean, y'all are doing amazing things.
stuff.
Students are doing amazing things. I mean, things that I would have never thought to do.
It's
when I
exciting
was
to
that
see as a
age.
student, like my peers are
Yes.
doing that. Like,
Yes.
kudos to y'all.
Well, and then you will see later on in life when you see your peers that are now alumni,
Yes.
that you're like, wait, you do what?
Yes.
Like, you know, I mean, I think
we
about
had
it.
freshman X-Corps together, girl.
Exactly. I saw one of my classmates who we used to sit next to each other because his last name is Hogan and mine is Holden. And, you know, he's the chair of orthopedics at one of the, like, best health systems, UPMC. And I'm just
Wow.
like, I mean, that's amazing, you know, to
Yeah.
see that 20 plus years later.
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely.
But you're saying we're doing amazing, but it's really also the alumni pouring back into us, honestly, that helps create that.
well, thank you.
What's up, Xavier writes? It's August, which means two things. The group chats are buzzing about move-in dates, and a few lucky Xavierites are enjoying a golden time in Martha's Vineyard. That must be nice. If you're tuning in from the vineyard, go ahead and send us a selfie in your Xavier merch. We're living through you right now. But trust, campus is about to be lit again in just a few short weeks. All the freshman send-offs have just wrapped up. Upperclassmen are mentally preparing. And if you listen closely, you can already hear the Pure Deans welcoming our new class of Xavierites. Whether you're watching your kids prep for college or reliving your own freshman year flashbacks, one thing is true. Once a Xavierite, always a Xavierite. Plus, let's not act like we don't already have homecoming on the brain. November 4th through the 9th will be here before you know it. I know y'all are already planning outfits and playlists, and it's about that time to put in your PTO request. The homecoming website is officially live. Head over to XULA Homecoming, that's XULA, homecoming.com to grab your tickets, secure your VIP package, and start planning an unforgettable week the Xavier way. From the banquet and the Alumni Golf Challenge to the gospel choir concert and brunch, there's something for everyone. And to our reunion classes, especially those ending in 5 and 0, we can't wait to celebrate with you.
Speaking of your time at Xavier, after looking into your profession and the major influence you made beyond Xavier's campus, we'd love for you to take a blast from the past and relive your experience.
Okay.
So, the year is 1998. Doo-Wop by Lauryn Hill's blasting from car speakers. Cash Money Records is running the city.
Yep.
And the Superdome is still the biggest show in town. What was New Orleans and Xavier like during your time on campus to your best recollection?
Gosh, it was amazing. And you're right. That Education of Lauryn Hill. I want to
Good
say
album still lit, still years later.
Yes. Erykah Badu just came out. Definitely, you know, Cash Money taking over for the 99 and the 2000. And then who else did we used to listen to? Of course, Outkast, Goody Mob. I mean, just so many. You know, Xavier, I feel like was just the energy on campus was just so great. You know, you will walk out, like I will walk out of KD and just be hit by like the energy. If it's, you know, people on the yard, of course, you know, the yard was over by where the chapel is now. But you would just see like the energy from people. I think the other thing was that everyone was there to ensure that we were all rising together. You know, everyone wanted to help each other. Everyone wanted to see each other succeed. Not just, you know, your peers, but also your, you know, your teachers and just, you know, everyone. And really even the city. Like, you know, you would go off campus and if you told someone that you were a Xavier student, like they just kind of wrapped their arms around you, you know? And they made sure that you made it back to campus. They made sure that you ate. And so I feel like, you know, our time was really just about that. I mean, I love, you know, Friday patio parties. I actually had lab on Friday. And I was like, why do I have lab on Friday? I mean, it was crazy. And I think I had lab on Friday both semesters. So I would like literally try to get out just to make it to the patio parties. Because I'm like, you know, you hear the music, all your friends are out there.
Like,
you know, you're just like, I got to get this done. Exactly. So, yeah, I mean, I just think, you know, the energy was infectious. We had, you know, this guy named Snappy who had his food truck. Definitely not like any of the, food trucks now, but like everybody knew Snappy. People still ask about Snappy. But yeah, it was just, it was fun. We really just enjoyed being around each other. And I'll also say a lot of people came to our campus, like when you think about from other schools, because they didn't have that type of energy. I remember my friends coming down from Southern, and even though Southern, is a great HBCU, has energy and everything, they would come down on Fridays for our patio parties.
It's still like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things where people are like, oh, okay, we didn't know that y'all were like this. They think about Xavier and they're like, everyone, exactly, they all they think is academics. But I'm like, you do know we're in New Orleans. Like, that New Orleans culture is definitely here on the campus. Yeah.
So as a chem major at Xavier, we kind of touched over it, but you took the non-traditional route. You didn't go to medical school. You didn't. You was like, the doctor route is not for me. Tell me more about that decision and the journey afterwards.
So I made that decision very late in life. Well, I'd say very late in life, but late in my college life. So I think my junior year was probably when I took anatomy and physiology. And I was like,
that
this
sounds
is
hard
not
as
for
is.
me. This is not for me. I passed the class, thankfully, from a friend, but it just was not for me. But I did not know how to tell my parents that I was not going to be a doctor. So I stayed the course. And I really, continued down that path, took the MCAT, applied for medical school, got into medical school, did all the things. And so it was really I want to say it was my senior year, maybe, January, February, where I called my brother and I was like, hey, I don't want to go to medical school. Now, my brother did a similar thing. He went to a different school, but started as a pre-med major, decided to pivot and go to law school. And my parents were devastated because he was supposed to be the first doctor and all these things. We have a lot of professionals in our family, but we don't have a doctor, which is we have lawyers, we have entrepreneurs, we have a lot of academia, but like no doctors. So he was supposed to be the first. Then my next brother, biology major, transitioned to music, and he's a musician.
Wow.
So it was like, Teal's going to be the doctor.
Your parents was like, this is the girl.
This has to be it. Exactly. She's going to do it. And I was like, gosh, I don't know what to do. And so my brother said, well, if you aren't going to go, you have to have a plan. Like you can't just go back home and be like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing. Like you have to have a plan. And that's really when I started to leverage those different resources with, my advisor, with other individuals here, like Dean Bird, who I trusted to just say, like, what are some other things that I could do? I think I already said, my advisor encouraged me early on to take, business classes and things like that. I think that she probably saw in me that I had more of a business mind, just from, being analytical and things like that. Exactly. Yeah. And so at that point, I was like, okay, maybe I'll go to business school. On the periphery, one of my best friends was in Houston and was really wanting to be a doctor. She did not do well on her MCAT. She was super, super smart, still super, super smart, and was not going into medical school. So she ended up learning about an MBA, MHA program and told me about it in regards to her doing that as her bridge and then eventually applying for medical school. So I started to look at that. But when I tell you, ladies, it was, okay, I graduated in May. I took the GMAT at the end of March. I applied, I want to say, my birthday weekend in April. Got into the MBA, MHA school, and I didn't tell my parents until a week before graduation that I was not going to medical school. Like, that was their plan.
Oh, my
God. And they were just like, what are you going to do? And I still remember to this day telling my dad, I'm going to go into healthcare administration, and one day I'm going to hire my Xavier friends. And he looked at me like, girl, please, go sit down somewhere. And I was like, I promise you, Dad, I am. And I still remember the first time I signed a Xavier doctor.
Oh.
And I remember the first time I signed my best friend, who ended up becoming a OBGYN because she worked for Memorial Hermann for a while as well. And I just looked at her and I was like, I told you this was going to happen.
This is going to happen.
You know, but at that point, you know, really it was just something for me to say. Like, I didn't know how I was going to do it. But I knew that I had the foundation. I mean, Xavier gave me the foundation, even though it was in science, and then with the business courses that I took, it gave me the confidence to know that I could really learn anything. And then on top of that, you know, knowing that I would still be interfacing with medical professionals, it gave me the terminology and everything that I needed to know to have, you know, one-on-one conversations with doctors and not sound as if I knew nothing about, you know, what they do. So I mean, I definitely, I would not advise anyone to do it that way. My parents were mad for a long time.
I bet they're happy now, though.
Yes. I mean, my dad is deceased, but I often think about like what he would think about now. You know, I just took my mom for her 75th birthday on a 17-day trip to France.
Oh,
you know, like, you know, those are the types of things that like
you can only dream of.
You can only dream of. And I would have never dreamt of that as a, you know, 20-year-old at Xavier, but I knew that I had the potential to get there.
So we talked on your time at Xavier, and I know you know that Xavier mission, it's been engraved in all of us. We live it. So what does it mean to be a Xavierite in your own words?
So I think to be a Xavierite, in my own words, means to truly be a servant leader, to always give back to the community, to always reach back as well, because I think, you know, we're always thinking about looking forward, but how do you also reach back to the students, to the university? When I think about, you know, us trying to create a more just and humane society, I think that that's always about just looking at, you know, how can we go out into this world and make things better? If that's either through innovation, if it's through policy, if it's through processes and procedures, if it's through technology, if it's through communication, like how do we, you know, give people voices in different spaces? I think that that's what being a Xavierite is to me. When I think about the Xavierites that came before me that encouraged me to come here, I saw that in them. I see that in my fellow alumni. I see that in students. And so that's what I feel like our mission means.
The mission, I feel like it's just like seeing it develop over 100 years, and it still rings so true. And we were just talking about this, like, it's so important in today's society. It's still relevant in today's society. So, like, what lessons from the mission have surprised you or challenged you most as you've grown into different leadership roles?
You know, you're right. Like our mission, whoever really sat down to think about the mission, as I even think about the mission of my own organization at work, you want it to be something that lasts for years.
For that long.
Because missions don't change, you know. You can change your vision based off of what's going on during that current climate, but typically your mission is always going to be steadfast and true. I think as I think about myself as a leader and as I think about the mission, you know, I think it just really depends on like what may be going on at that time. You know, as I think about, you know, alumni right now, or, you know, and connecting that back to the mission of Xavier, I think, you know, we have to think about how do we continue to bring what we got here into the world, you know? I think sometimes that gets lost when you're doing every single thing else that you're doing, you know? But this small school in the middle of, you know, New Orleans gave you a sense of purpose and values that you should always be carrying forward. And so, you know, I think that for me, you know, I don't necessarily know if I feel like my approach or anything around the mission has evolved over time. I think that I think that my purpose has deepened in the mission, though, because as you experience more things as an adult and as you have different, interactions and experiences, that mission is what centers you. And so you just get a more deeper appreciation for it. So I can't say that I feel like it's really evolved. I just feel like, well, I guess it has evolved because like before it was just like, okay, this is the mission, but now you live it out.
Yeah.
You live it out every single day. And when you live something out every single day, it becomes ingrained into you.
I think even at the capping ceremony, I didn't even understand. We're singing the alma mater. We're talking about the mission
Right.
and the vision. I'm like, yeah, all that is cool. What's next?
Right.
But literally only 2 years into my Xavier career, just doing different things, meeting different people, meeting alumni. It's just like you actually see the mission in people.
Right.
You see
Exactly.
the mission coming to life. I think that's just so amazing. It's so cool to see that.
And I feel like we can recite the mission all we want, but you don't truly understand it until you start doing things.
And it's funny because when you're alumni and you come back and you say the mission, you're like, man,
I did that.
what you're saying. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. It's just one of those things where you're like, okay, like I'm really doing that.
I get that.
Yeah.
So as the president of NAA, can you highlight some key initiatives you are looking forward to tackling as part of the NAA strategic plan?
Yeah. So our National Alumni Association created our strategic plan last year as we really started to think about 4 different pillars. We wanted to understand how can alumni support other alumni and really start to highlight the work that we as alumni are doing across the country and across the globe. We wanted to bring alumni together to have ways that we can share best practices, ways that we could just share information with each other. In partnership with the Office of Alumni Relations, we've created these Alumni Thought Leadership Series. We were only supposed to have 4 in a year, so every quarter, but the first one was so successful that we've already had 3 in this year, and then we have 3 more planned, which may grow because people are like, we want you to talk about this, we want you to talk about that. And Kim Reese said it earlier today at the beginning of our conference, we have everything that we need right here at Xavier. We have your health professionals, we have your lawyers, we have your authors, we have every single career. Exactly. We have it covered. And so we wanted to make sure that we highlight our alumni to be able to show, all of the breadth and depth that our alumni have. The other thing is that, today we only have a couple of awards for alumni. So, of course, we have our 40 Under 40, we have our Victor Labat Award, and then we partner with UNCF in regards to awards. But we want to expand our awards to be able to really showcase the work that our alumni are doing and really be able to celebrate them. We have alumni that are doing amazing things. We have students that are coming straight out of Xavier doing amazing things.
Absolutely.
And so how do we, not only celebrate that with the Xavier family, but then how do we get that message out more and more? And so really looking at how we can do that, and just continue to promote that alumni connection. We also want to be able to develop our alumni. And so we have a young alumni committee that's really looking at how do we develop young alum and thinking about that at all parts of your life. So when you're going into the workforce, when you are making those pivots in your career, when you're getting married, unfortunately, if you're getting divorced, when you have to take care of a parent, just all of those different things to be able to say, how can we help make that transition easy for you? And how can we develop you and give you the skills to be able to do that? Because while we learn a lot of things at Xavier, there are some things that you don't learn at Xavier. And so how can we bring in our expertise to be able to provide that professional development? I love, even with the leadership conference, we have some of that professional development going on here. But how can we do that more than just once a year? So that's one pillar. The other pillar is how can alumni continue to support the university, not just through our gifts, even though giving back financially is key. When we think about our centennial campaign and our very bold, goal of $500 million, I am a vice chair of our centennial campaign, and so we definitely know that being able to support Xavier financially will help us for the next 100 years. But on top of that, how can we think about alumni working with the university in all facets? So Dr. Jaguette talked about earlier today academic programs around health informatics, data science, clean energy, all of those different types of things. How are we pulling alumni that are in those fields to be able to come back and talk about the real world experience there? How can we leverage them to, create out the curriculum for that? Like I think about healthcare administration. A lot of, students that I talk to say, oh, I want to go into healthcare administration, so I'm majoring in public health. And I'm like, no, you need to major in business because running a hospital is running a business. Public health is something very different. And so really being able to leverage alumni to be able to bring back some of that experience to help guide the students. And then also as we think about just ways that we can continue to move the university forward, how can the university leverage alumni when it comes to advocacy, when it comes to legislature, when it comes to different investment models and things like that. So that's our second pillar. The other one is alumni to students. And so how do we ensure that alumni are not necessarily, being Office of Student Affairs. Like, we just want to be a support to that. So, we have the Youth Motivational Task Force where people come back and talk about their experiences in their fields of work. But we also want alumni to develop things for our students, develop internships, offer for students to shadow you, mentor them. And so really just thinking about ways that we can be able to do that. We also want our alumni to show up for our students, especially during those milestones. So orientation, capping ceremony, the senior toast, like all of those different types of things. There were times, or at least when we first started some of these events, you may have only seen like the executive board of the National Alumni Association or maybe the New Orleans chapter, but how do we get our alumni coming back for that and really being supportive students? I'm sure you all see other HBCUs that have these big ceremonies, alumni are lined all the way down the street. We want that to be Xavier one day as well. And so thinking about how we can really be there during those milestone times for students. And then the last one is around philanthropy. So, definitely talked about giving, but not just of your treasure, but also how can you open us up to your network? A lot of people have, work for organizations that have large dollars. A lot of people have connections with foundations. A lot of people sit on boards. A lot of people have friends that are doing, major things in this country. And so how do you bring Xavier on the forefront to be able to be in the position for people to give large dollars back to Xavier? We know that we're going to need these dollars over time. We also want alumni to be able to tell their Xavier story because that is what propels people to give. To be able to say, I came onto this campus at 17 years old. This is what they gave me. This is what I'm producing now out into the society, into the economy. And so being able to tell that story as well, because that all takes a part into how you create stewardship and how that really builds how alumni can be a part of our philanthropy strategy as well.
I feel so grateful to just be on campus and at Xavier doing such a monumental stretch, 100 years, meeting different alumni, talking to people, hearing their stories. It's witnessing that history and motion is so important. And I love hearing from alumni because you hear so many different stories. You guys come from so many different places.
Yep.
You do so many different things. And I love just even talking about Xavier compared to other universities because it's we're so special in so many different ways. Like, we're
Yeah.
small but mighty. Even seeing, like, driving in my hometown of Chicago and seeing Xavier license plate, like, that
Yeah.
makes me giddy on the
Exactly.
inside.
Yep.
It's like, oh
Me
my
too,
God.
when I see it in Houston.
Like, that makes me so excited. Like, oh my God, you know. So seeing that and being a part of this, even doing the podcast, is just like seeing that development and that growth. It's so amazing to see all of that.
And, you know, we won't be here for the next centennial. You know, none of us will be here. And so, you know, we have to all think about, how do we build that foundation that St. Catherine Drexel built 100 years ago? Because we're now adding on to that foundation.
Absolutely.
She's not here to witness this, you know? And so you think about the Dr. Francis's, the Dr. Verettes, and all of the faculty and staff that were here that made major impressions on these students' lives, that then went out and did things beyond what they could imagine ever possible. And so now we're building that foundation for the next 100 years that we won't even be here to witness. And so, you know, you think about that, and you think about, like, what is it that you want Xavier to be? You know, there are parts of Xavier that I don't want to change. Like, I want it to still be close-knit. I want students to be able to still experience, you know, certain things that we experienced in the, you know, late 90s that I know that people experienced in the 50s, and, you know, so on and so forth. But then you also want it to progress. You know, you want that still community feel, but you want, you know, the school to be able to offer new technologies and innovation and programs that, you know, put it above all of the rest. And so that's what we're doing now. Like, we're laying that foundation for the next 100 years. And so it is one of those things where I'm like, gosh, I would have never thought that I would have even been this involved in a centennial. But it's amazing. Like, I just think that it's wonderful for all of us to be here to witness that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a legacy. We're literally trying to keep the
Living
legacy.
in the legacy.
Yeah, definitely.
Now it's time for my favorite part of the podcast.
The
it's
best part.
time to rush our GOAT guests into answering some rapid fire questions.
All right.
This segment of the podcast is called the Live Five. We're going to ask you 5 questions we think our GOAT community would love to know. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Biggest leadership lesson you've learned so far?
To listen. and always get constructive feedback.
A woman in leadership who inspires you right now.
Who first comes to mind is Michelle Obama, just because she's fabulous, you know?
If you could relive one moment at Xavier, what would it be?
I mean, graduation. My graduation week was pretty phenomenal. So I would relive graduation.
If you could have dinner with one Xavier alum, past or present, who would it be?
Oh, Dr. Francis.
What is one thing about New Orleans that never changes no matter how much time passes?
When I cross that bridge into New Orleans, it's just the feeling of home.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
I always tell people I was born and raised in Houston, but I grew up in New Orleans.
I feel
Because
that
I
right
grew
now.
into
Yeah.
an adult in New Orleans.
Yeah.
So just that feeling of home. And I feel it, of course, when I cross the bridge coming into the school, but I feel it as soon as I hit, you know, as I
Pontchartrain,
land,
yes.
or if I'm crossing, you know, Pontchartrain, like, yeah, I just have that feeling of this is my home.
Absolutely. Well, again, it was a pleasure connecting with you, a fellow alumnus, through conversation. How can our growing GOAT community connect with you online?
Sure. So I won't say that I'm on a whole bunch of social media because I'm just not. I'm on Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn. Facebook is probably the easiest way to get in contact with me. I don't check my LinkedIn that often.
Really? We were like, you're active.
It's active
You're really
on there.
active.
I was like, wow, she's more active than a lot of people.
I have people who do that.
Don't be ashamed. Do not be ashamed.
My assistant does a lot of my LinkedIn.
You're a
but,
busy
yeah.
woman. You gotta
Another
keep
job,
up with
another
everybody.
employed
Yes,
person.
it
Yeah.
is.
Another
Yeah.
employed person. Well, again, Teal, it was a pleasure having you.
Absolutely.
You were
Thank
you
so amazing to
guys.
speak to.
Thank you
Thank
all.
you so
Thank you all for
much.
having me.
XU, you know what to do.
Subscribe and rate the show today and join us, the Xavier Gold Live podcast, on the first Tuesday of every month to stay up to date with all things alumni.
Follow at XULA Alumni on Instagram and subscribe to our monthly alumni newsletter.
Until next time, Xavierites.